Welcome everyone for a new weekly recap. And today we are going to talk about actually working power in the gym in order to generate more speed with your driver. And so because this is more or less what I've been thinking about with my training as I'm moving forward. Until now I was more focused on building foundation for strength. But as this year is about speed, and so I want to reach 130 by the end of the year, and so I'm going to slowly start reaching the idea of working more on power in the gym. And so I want to talk a little bit today about how I'm going to do that and why I'm choosing that way rather than other ways. And so let's get to it. I'm going to show you, because I've done also a little bit of update on my training plan. So I'm going to show you as well and explain as I go why I made those choices. So what you want. So here, that was kind of the old way, the old cycles that I've built. Even though the timeline is not right, what's the right timeline is here. So you see, this is one cycle with one deload week, another cycle with another deload week, and so on. Actually, I need to change the color because that might be confusing. Anyway, but here's the deal. That doesn't change the focus, for instance, for those two cycles or those two cycles. Here, the focus is mainly a little bit of hypertrophy, but mainly strength, gaining strength. And then here on the next few cycles, which are going to be there, I'm still going to focus on strength, really reaching my peak strength, which is, I have my goal here of 180 with the squat, 140 with the bench, and 220 with the deadlift. But as I'm going to reach that, I'm not going to try to go beyond that in terms of strength. That's where starting working more on power or speed is going to start making more sense. And here is why. I need to explain something first. See, when it comes to power, there is this idea of rate of force development. To generate power, you need a high rate of force development. You need to be able to recruit as much muscle fiber as fast as possible. This is how you generate power. Where strength is more or less just your ability to recruit those muscle fiber, even if this is throughout a long period of time. So that's why when you're at the bottom of a squat, when you push, there is no requirement for you to get to the top of your squat as fast as possible. This is just about you being able to recruit all your muscle fiber to get up and and finish your squat. Same for the bench and so on. So there is a very big difference between strength and power. Even though you want to activate all your muscle fiber, there is really this idea of speed that is going on. At which rate, at which speed are you able to recruit them? But here's the deal. If your nervous system don't know how to activate those muscle fiber, it cannot activate them faster. That's why you need first to build a strong foundation with strength to teach your nervous system to recruit as much muscle fiber as possible. But once that's done, you need to move more to power-oriented work so you recruit them faster. And here's the deal. So that's the general thing. But when it comes to rate of force development, so that's mainly a curve of how fast you're able to recruit your muscle fiber. Until a certain point, and I'm going to give you the benchmark, but until a certain point, just getting stronger allow you to have a better rate of force development, just because you are stronger. But there is a point where what happens is getting stronger don't yield better result in terms of rate of force development. Where if you're not strong enough, the limiting factor is your strength. But if you're strong enough, the limiting factor becomes your speed. At which speed are you able to recruit those muscle fiber? And so the benchmark is, generally speaking, and for athletes in general, but in golf, I might think that with slightly different. You can have raw number rather than ratio compared to your body weight. But for athletes in general, we are looking at somewhere around 1.25 or 1.5 times your body weight on the bench in terms of a strength benchmark. What I mean by that is, as I told you, you need to be strong enough, and then after that point, this is more about your ability to generate power rather than being stronger. That will affect more the rate of force development. And so those benchmarks are the minimum requirement. So 1.25, to keep it simple, I'm keeping to myself 1.5 on the bench, 2 times body weight on the squat, and 2.5 times body weight on the deadlift. So just to give you an idea of how much that is, let's do it right here. So we have 1.5 for the bench. So bench, squat, and deadlift. So here we have 1.5 times body weight, 2 times body weight, and 2.5 times body weight. So my body weight is about slightly lower than 75, but let's 75 kilograms, which I don't remember in pounds how much that is. That's 160. Well, yes, 165 pounds. 165 pounds. Just to give you an idea here. So, I'm sorry. Just to give you an idea. Up. Tuck. So, if we multiply this by this, and let's actually put that like this. Yes. So we are talking about, for me, for instance, at 75 kilogram or 165 pound, I'm talking about a one. Actually, let's talk. Oh, nope. Yep, here we go. Okay, so we are talking about a 247 pound bench, or 112.5 kilogram bench, or for a squat at 2 times is about 150, so 330 pound. And for the deadlift, we are talking somewhere around 187.5 or 412. And so for you, for instance, you may take a look at this, and if at the moment you're not at those benchmarks for your body weight, you need to understand that at the moment the limiting factor for your ability to generate speed and ultimately getting faster with the driver is the limiting factor is your strength. If you match those benchmarks, and that's why you see that me, at the moment, I have matched those benchmarks. I've been able to reach, so I'm pretty much there. But the reason why I want to kind of go beyond that is because those benchmarks are kind of the minimum requirement. It's like at this point, this is kind of okay. You can work on strength or power, both will yield result. So that's why, since I'm still in strength, I want to really go beyond those benchmarks. So with 180 on the squat, 140 on the bench, and 220 on the deadlift. So we know that, okay, strength is no more the limiting factor. Now your time is better spent actually working on power. And so I'm going to keep going. So I'm going beyond the benchmark to make sure strength is not a limiting factor anymore. And that's actually power that I need to work on. So that's kind of where I want to be. But here's the deal. So even though those are benchmark for athletes in general. In general, when we are talking power versus strength, this is general. But here's the deal. In golf, this is more about your ability to swing the club. And the club has a fixed weight. Because on those, for instance, on basketball, tennis, and so on, your body weight is going to affect your ability to be explosive on the field. Because when you are changing direction, jumping, and so on, your body weight is what's limiting you in some way. So you need to kind of take in consideration, okay, I need to get as that strong in order to then be having my power being the limiting factor. That's why I think for golf, And that's honestly, that's pure theory at this point. But since there is a very limiting, since there is a fixed weight, this is the driver, this is the dynamic of the club during the swing. I don't know if that limit, first of all, is fixed. The point where you need to stop working on strength and start working on power more. If it's constant, so I think the bare minimum would be like 2 plates on the bench, 3 plates on the squat, and a 4 plate on the deadlift, which will be 100 on the bench, 140 on the squat, 180 on the deadlift. I think that's the bare minimum, and I'm a living proof of it, because until I reached those benchmarks, I was really feeling that it was difficult for me to accelerate the club. And now that I've reached those benchmarks, I start feeling the power rising in me, where I start feeling that things get easier and easier, because now strength is not the limiting factor. This is my power. And since I have a good genetic because I have a lot of type 2 fibers, generating power is not the issue for me. So I start thinking a lot more about that. But that's also, I said I have good genetic for generating power. So even me, without working a lot on power, I start feeling the power rising in me. So that's one thing. Is it just fixed, or is it the faster you swing? Because here's the deal: the faster you swing, the more force the club is going to have throughout the swing. So I'm thinking that maybe the faster, that's a theory, and that I will see throughout this year how that will evolve as I'm getting stronger and more powerful, if that makes sense or not, what is happening in my body and so on. That's still uncharted territories, but so far, I'm telling you, reaching those benchmarks that I've told you is the minimum requirement for really starting seeing your speed skyrocket. At least really make big jump. And I start feeling the rise of power in me. So we'll see in the future. But anyway, the point that I wanted to make is, okay, I will soon I already am at the point where strength is not the limiting factor. I will push further than that to be sure, because here I'm kind of right on the edge, so I don't really want to make, because there is a lot of things that I've learned, okay, from other fields, other sports. Honestly, in golf, there is no real information about that kind of work. So I'm trying to gather information through science, sport, and so on, just to understand and try to apply it to golf. So I'm still in uncharted territory here. So I know that I'm right on the edge, so I really want to push further to make sure, okay, that's not even a question anymore. Strength is not an issue. Because here, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it is not. And so I don't want to have this uncertainty. So that's why I'm going to push to 140, 180, 140 to 20. That's kind of the goal. But here's the deal. So I've finally come back to how I'm actually going to be working on power. Let's just for a minute. So how do you work on power? There is a lot of different things, and power and speed are really two different animals, because speed alone is better work with very little to no resistance, because what you want is just pure fast activation of your muscle as fast as possible. So no resistance is actually necessary. Where power is the equation of power is speed times strength. And so there is a component of progressive overload that come with power. And here is the deal. There is a lot of exercise. For instance, I'm going to take the example of medicine ball or dumbbell box jump. For example, there is a ton of work that you can do with plyometric, weighted plyometric, and so on. I have an issue with those, because this is very difficult to have a smooth increment in terms of overload, and that's just more difficult to manage. where there is other things like Olympic lift, which are extremely powerful motion, where you need to be power, you need mainly to work on power. The limiting factor, of course, is going to be your strength in terms of squat and so on, but that we already worked on. So now this is really about working on the Olympic lift or on specific part. You, as athlete, if you're not an Olympic lifter and you a weight lifter, and this is something you want to do, as an athlete, you don't have to work on the exact lift of the Olympic lift. What you want to do is, but what you want to do is actually work on the part that will help you transfer more power. And so, for instance, on the clean and jerk, I believe, so you take the bar off the ground and you put it. I'm not an expert at that point because I'm going to start working on it as we go throughout the year, but I'm pretty much a beginner when it comes to Olympic lift. I've never done them, so I still need to figure some things out. But in terms of what I've understood, so when you take the bar from the ground and you put it on your shoulder here, as an Olympic lifter, what you want is lower your weight as much as possible, your body as much as possible, so you can get it onto your shoulder. Where as an athlete, what you want to do is not doing that. You want to lift that weight and jump it as high as possible, and getting to land on your shoulder, on a front squat almost, without having to lower yourself. So that's really just the power from the ground. And then the power as well at the top. So because the ability to go down and push, I'm going to start in detail. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is those you use barbells. And with barbells, you can actually manage progressive overload very easily. So you start with a weight where you generate massive amount of power. And then what you do, that's something you want to do, is monitor the kind of the speed at which the bar move. And then you want to keep increasing the speed until you reach pretty much your limit in terms of actual speed. And so the way to increase your power is just to put more weight. And so you kind of balance speed and more weight, so you get stronger and more powerful as you go. So that's kind of because it's like you want to start with, because as I said, there is a speed component and strength component, and so you want to see, okay, start with as fast as possible. Okay, what is your max speed that you can generate at the moment? Just to give a baseline. Then you add weight and you try to get closer and closer to that baseline. And once you are able to get very close to that baseline, 95% on something, then you increase the weight. And you try to keep your max velocity. Each time you increase the weight, of course, your velocity is going to drop a little, but because you're working on power, you can get back to your max velocity, and so on and so on. And then there is the other part which is just about speed, but that we will see later in the year. So just to talk about why I'm start talking about that right now. Here's the deal. Here I have done a cycle. I don't really know where to put myself. Anyway, I'm going to stay there. Here I have done a first cycle. Let's do it like that. I've done a first cycle. I'm going to do another, and then we are moving on to finishing the strength cycle and start working on power. So here's the deal. Olympic lift are difficult technically, and before you can actually be able to get something out of it, you need to get comfortable with the motion, and so you can actually work on power and not just being comfortable with the motion. And so there is an idea of starting to prime the motion before you start actually working on it. So here I want, on this phase here, I want to start working on power. So later, when there is power-oriented work here, I will be ready to really push power as high as possibly can. So I don't really know if I should start doing Olympic lift right from this mesocycle or just wait until the next mesocycle and start incorporating those power lift in my training, but not necessarily at the weight I will be using them to train, but at a very low weight that actually is not going to add any fatigue to my training, but will allow me to get more and more comfortable with the technique, start learning the pattern and so on. So then when later we move on to the power oriented and speed oriented cycle, I will have built the necessary pattern early on to be comfortable with the motion. So then when I start loading the bar, this is going to be much about just raw power work rather than me trying to get comfortable with the technique. It's just anticipating what's coming next, start working on the technique now so I get comfortable with it. So then later it's just about training and not about getting comfortable with it. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Sorry, that was a little bit of a long tangent, but I believe that's really important because as we move further and further, as I told you, I think in terms of strength, honestly, going beyond that, it's just ego-based. I don't see a reason why I should be, especially because I believe this is more than enough for me to reach my goal of 130. If I wanted to go way beyond than that, maybe that would make sense to get stronger. But here's a little, to get stronger than that, first of all, it's going to take a long time, and I might need more muscle mass. So that's also something I need to consider and think about, how much muscle mass I can gain without having this becoming an issue in terms of mobility in my swing. And also something important, which later is going to be even more important, is since I have a genetic more prone for strength rather than endurance, I basically have a very big weakness in terms of endurance. So I want to stay as light as possible while becoming as strong as possible. So, I mean, maybe over years and so on, over the next few years, maybe I will push further, really try to get into elite powerlifting territory just for the fun of it, and because by working the nervous system and not my muscle mass. That will make sense because the stronger I'm going to be and the lighter I'm going to be, the more endurant I'm going to be in general. So yeah, that's some of the things that make sense. Anyway, so I think that's it for today. Just this week we start back on the mesocycle. So goal for this week 114. So normally now that I have recovered, that my fatigue has been removed and so on, 114 should be easy. And as we saw on the last session, because I've done only 2 sessions here, but yeah, the little chill session that I did after doing 4 holes, I believe, yeah, that was insane. I mean, I averaged 115.9 for the session, and honestly, I wasn't really trying, just because I was recovered, fresh, the speed was there. So I'm not saying because as I'm getting back to training here, I'm going to accumulate fatigue and so on, so that's going to be more difficult. But yeah, I believe by getting stronger, 114 for sure, it's not even a question. 115, I think that's going to be not easy, but doable. And the 116 is going to be perfect because, as I told you, the last week of a mesocycle should be the hardest week. So here, we will be at a point where I will have accumulated 2 weeks of fatigue, and so the third week is going to be a little bit harder, but I will be a little bit stronger, and so I will have to really push myself to get that 116. But then, since there is a deload after that, normally, as I said, the last week of the mesocycle is always the toughest. That's normal because you want to push yourself out of your comfort zone so you can adapt, recover during the deload. So the next deload, so the next cycle, you can go on to a new phase with much stronger foundation. And I believe this is, so I think so far, I'm very positive on how this mesocycle is going to go. I don't know about the next one and the next one after, but let's focus on the present moment. I think I can have it. Maybe I will have a 120 at some point, since during this deload I had a 119.6, and maybe 120 is actually possible. What I really want to do, even though I've been able to kind of reach the benchmark that I want for the squat, bench, and deadlift, You see deadlift, I done it. I've done it on the bench, and I've done it once on the squat. But here's the deal: those were kind of hard reps. So what I would want is having those easy reps. So I'm going to consolidate those weights, I think, during those this mesocycle to really get comfortable with those weights. So then when I move on to the next mesocycle, it's going to be much easier to actually do 170, 130, and 210, and the even further one. So that's mainly my goal, just consolidate the weight as well as going to allow me to kind of alleviate a little bit more fatigue, I think. But we'll see. If the weight starts feeling very easy, maybe I will go for 170, 130, 210. We'll see how that goes. Maybe on the last week, maybe I will feel like doing it. So we'll try. We'll see. But the deadlift is really about what I told you in the last session where I did deadlift. That's going to be really about how much I'm getting comfortable by finding the right technique. Because I'm going to be honest, I started getting into some ways that scared me a little in terms of injuring myself. So I really need to find a way for me to do the deadlift that I feel that is safe, that I can actually give 100%. Because until now, it's kind of this, I'm not able to give 100% each time. I'm giving a good deal, but since I'm a little bit scared of hurting myself, I'm retaining myself a little. So I think I have more in the tank than that. It's just that I need to find a way that feels safe, that allow me to push further. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. Yeah. Let's come back here. So yeah, I feel confident, and also I want to talk a little bit about something else just to finish. I told you that I'm going to start doing some different type of content, short form content, to gain more views and start growing this channel, my Instagram, and my TikTok account. I need one more week of preparation, but next week I'm going to start creating those content and posting them. So good things are coming. I'm really excited about that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.